the World Healing Tour movement with your host, Noah Crane. Heal yourself.
Hey everybody, my name is Lisa Ray. I'm a literary agent and I'm working with the media team here at The Grass Grows where I am, and we are so excited to bring you a co-author experience where you will grow your brand and your visibility. Click the link below and apply now for free, and we will see you inside the pages of The Grass Grows where I am.
Hello, and welcome to the World Healing Tour podcast, where our mission is to help you heal yourself so you can heal the world. Hi, my name is Noah Crane. Each week, we will bring you tips and tools and inspire you to live your most empowered and joyful life. I'm also the author of the book, The Grass is Greenest Where I Am, because the grass is greenest where you are when you choose to live in a place of no comparison, no competition, and no scarcity. When you choose to live in your own love and light and share your unique gifts with the world. That's why we call it World Healing Tour, because when you heal yourself, you truly create that ripple effect for others to live better and happier lives. Each week, I bring incredible guests into studio to pour into you and to help you on this journey. I'm super excited about my guest today. Jason R. Hill is a tech entrepreneur and founder of the OWWLL App, revolutionizing connection through instant one-on-one audio calls. With features in prominent publications like Forbes and the Wall Street Journal, Jason is recognized for his forward-thinking use of technology. Jason, I want to welcome you to the World Healing Tour podcast.
Hello, everybody. How's everything going? Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, it's so great. Everything is great, and we're just so excited. I'm really excited, Jason, to showcase you and what you do, because you really bring people together. And to me, that's the key to everything. That's the key to all we want in our lives. Because I always say together we are one. I spell it W-O-N. And you do that. You bring the oneness together. So let's start by just saying, where did this idea of this incredible app that I recently got introduced to, that I love, and so many other people love around the world, where did that idea come from?
I'm so happy to share this. And what you said in your intro was so important, the ripple effect, right? Because lots of times we have conversations on OWWL or on podcasts, and there's major ripples and there's major impact across the world. So what happened is I was in the financial service business in New York City most of my career. I moved down to South Florida about 7-8 years ago, and I started a podcast. It's called The Shrimp Tank. I started interviewing amazing entrepreneurs, and then COVID-19 hit. And then I was out of business, and I was like, this stinks. I love speaking to people, and we shifted to an online model for a short period of time, but I picked up on something during that period, that people were missing human connection. And at that time, an idea sparked while I was driving to work. What if I created a mobile application where I could literally look down on my device and call someone in real time without scheduling a meeting, just to connect and collaborate, and sometimes just BS on your car ride. That's the truth. And I called up a friend and I said, hey, can you build something like this? He was in the technology business. He said, let's find out. I'll talk to some developers. I'll talk to my father, who's been in this business for 30, 40 years. He said, we could potentially do this. Let's jump on a meeting.
That's incredible. You know, you saw a problem,
Yeah.
and you knew that you could fill that need, or you had the desire to fill that need, and that idea came to you. Do you feel like it was like a download from God? I feel like, a lot of the things, because I'm a creative person too, and I feel like a lot of things that we get is almost like, it's almost like God gives you this mission or this, problem to solve.
I've always been an entrepreneur. My dad ran a store in New York City for over 30 years. And as a little kid, I'd run in with him to New York City. I'd go to garage sales, flea markets with my father. And I was always inventing things through school and trying to find creative ways to make money, to be fair. And naturally, I'd always look at like the popcorn bucket. I'm like, wait, why is there no butter, on all the different layers? Or why don't we have a robot that could clean the floor? Literally, I invented that back in the day with a remote control race car, for example. So, OWWL hit me, and it was just the right timing, right? I had interviewed so many different podcast guests, and I listened to their stories and their successes and their failures. And I said, this is a problem out there, and there needs to be a solution. There was nothing else on the market that could do what I wanted it to do. And I just went for it. My gut instinct was that we needed this product in the marketplace, especially during COVID-19. Obviously, if I had this product out when COVID-19 occurred, we would have skyrocketed overnight because people were dying to speak with people at that time, and everyone was rushing over to Zoom, of course, or apps like Clubhouse. I got a little late to the market because it took a lot of time to develop, of course.
Yeah, things like that do take a long time to develop. But the thing is that you're solving a problem. You found a need, and Clubhouse was. I was on Clubhouse. Were you on Clubhouse as well?
Absolutely.
I mean, that was the place where all the celebrities came to, where people really connected during COVID-19. But it's so amazing how today Clubhouse is not the place to go to anymore.
And
It's kind of dead.
it died off, and we'll never know why, right? Some people say that they went in the wrong direction, right, where they started to change the app too quickly, and often there was too much saturation with the amount of rooms. I was following it very closely because I thought when I was developing OWL that potentially they could go to the one-to-one space for real money. They were never really in that space. You could go one-to-one in a private room, but there was no cost involved. And I always knew that OWL was going to be built for the one-on-one interactions, for collaborating and networking. So thankfully, they never went down that route. But I was scared, right, that they potentially could. And a lot of people knew that I was building OWL, said, what if they do that? Or what if LinkedIn does this? And I monitored it closely. So my 2 cents is they allowed too many people to create rooms. And then when they did that, all the rooms started to have less people in them. And then the people that were able to run those rooms were not the people that you often wanted guidance from. So a busy professional like myself, I'll use an example, in financial services at the time, right? I'm the licensed professional. I should be the one up at the top of that room giving financial guidance. Yet when I joined a financial service room, right, what happens is you had non-licensed professionals running the room because they had time. All right, I didn't have time. I had 1 hour a day to pop in there to have some fun on my way to work, way home from work, or, I ate dinner. Let me step outside from my wife for a moment and jump into a Clubhouse room. But the problem was really simple. Every time I went in that room, I couldn't get mic time, right? The people who controlled the rooms were the people who had no job, and that's where it was backwards. And unfortunately, a lot of people left for that same reason. When you take people's feedback and you ask, why aren't you using the app? You find out real quick. But sometimes when a company grows that quickly and they raise that much capital, sometimes the founders stop listening. So we'll never really know, did they miss the mark because the founders didn't take feedback? And I'm really proud at OWL that we take so much feedback, right? We listen to our OWL community members, we listen to our brand ambassadors, and we continuously build. And I post in our Facebook group, I say, hey, we're thinking about new features. What do you guys want to see? And we continue to evolve based on our audience.
Yeah, I love that. Where did the name OWL come from? I've always been curious about that.
That's actually a funny story. So I started to hire this development company, right? And typically, you build out these things called wireframes. Wireframes are what you see when you enter the app, right? All the different screens, the screens you see today, the way it looks on the home screen, for example. And it was like day one, and they said, what's the name? And I go, I have no idea. When do I need this by? And they're like, we need this as soon as possible because all the different frames are going to probably have that logo. And we need to get that moving to start the process. So I went right to GoDaddy. I started typing in different names, and me and my business partners just started messing around. There was no AI back then where you say, give me a name for this or that. You were Googling stuff. And I knew it had to do with like maybe time. So time was one of the key words, and something with speed. So you think Zoom, right? And you think like sharks are really quick, right? And I started just looking at animals, and eventually I came to OWL because owls are the bird of wisdom and intelligence. And that's what OWL's all about, right? Connecting, learning, and growing with other individuals. So it just hit me, OWL, but we got a problem. Like OWL is obviously taken, right? There's a million mascots out there with OWL. And something else I really liked is I felt from my past experience as a business owner, I wanted to keep the name very short. My first brand was Client Focused Advisors, and I realized that was a marketing mistake. The longer the name, the more issues you run into, more issues pronouncing it, for example, and no one wants to type in Client Focused Advisor on an email.com, right? So I eventually had to shorten it to Client FA, but I still own both domain names. So I knew when it comes to an app, right, the best apps that succeed are less characters. Uber, as an example, or Lyft, right? Most are 4 to 8 characters. So OWL, happened to be open with an extra W, an extra L, and the logo is like a normal owl, So I ran with it. I bought the domain name, and that's how you got OWL with two W's, two L's.
Yeah, I love the spelling.
Thank you.
And I think it's a really cool thing that you were able to up with it. And it's
Yep.
very easy to remember as well.
Yeah. Everyone loves the brand. We see it right here, right? And
It's
a very,
unique.
it's a
It's
very
unique.
simple logo,
Yeah, it's very
right?
unique.
And what I love about this is most of our stuff is black or white, right? But there's something about a black T-shirt or a black long sleeve shirt that everyone loves wearing. And I feel like most people when they go to events, they grab the shirt and they never wear it. They're almost like, nah, that's not my type. I'm embarrassed to put that on. Not this shirt. When we give the shirt away, it just looks so unique. Obviously, big musicians like Drake, he has owls, for example, right? And it just has authority right out of the gate. And you see a lot of people with tattoos with owls, of course. So it just means a lot to a lot of people, and people really wear the brand.
That's a cool looking shirt. I
Thank
like
you.
it. It's really nice. You did a great job.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
wear my gear
amazing.
everywhere. Right?
Yeah.
I have all different versions, and that was a shift from financial advisor, right, wearing a suit and tie all the time, and all of a sudden switching to more this type of culture, and this type of gear.
It brought
is
the
part of the brand.
creativity in.
Yep.
I feel like you brought so much creativity in,
Thank you.
and just a different spin on that. So let's talk a little bit about the app, because the app is amazing. And I think you're amazing. You're an
Thank you.
amazing person, and you're doing so much for community, so much to grow people and bring them together. And I feel like the people because I'm a member, I'm part of OWL, and I love OWL. And what's really cool about it is the people that I speak with on OWL, they're quality people. And I feel
Yeah.
like you attract who you are. So how has it been? Is that what it's been to you? Is being able to attract kind of like who you are? Do you believe that's what the key is to finding the right people?
Acquiring the right people has been the hardest thing I ever imagined. So when we launched, it was during the days of Clubhouse. So I would DM people on Clubhouse, and I would schedule meetings with them through the app, even though the app is designed in real time to call someone out of the blue. But I couldn't do that in the early days. There was no one available. It was a marketplace, right? A marketplace, you need two parties, the inbound caller and the outbound caller, right? And it was just so difficult to get people to try new technology where they're like, what is this? You had to explain it over text and DMs. But you attract exactly the right type of people when you communicate through apps like Clubhouse, and they hear your voice, they see you're serious, they see you're professional. And thankfully I had a big audience already. Through my podcast, The Shrimp Tank, I'd become known as the Shrimp Tank guy, in South Florida that knows a lot of other business owners. And then when I would reach out to people over text, they were proud of me. Like, you built an app? They're like, that's pretty cool. Like, most people don't know many individuals who've built an app from scratch. It's different if you own a restaurant and you're like, oh, we now have an app that you could order from, right? That's different. They typically take a template style app and they're paying some type of fee to use that technology. And there's hundreds of other restaurants likely using that technology as well, that same app. But with OWL, it was built from the ground up. So it took a lot of meetings with developers and a lot of long nights thinking about how this technology would work long term to scale to millions of users and one day impact a billion people, of course. So
Is that your mission, is to impact 1 billion people?
it is. It is, right? Because I was in financial services and I'm helping some people, right? But you can never help 1 billion people. Yes, there's some gurus out there that their voice gets heard by 1 billion people in finance, but statistically it's very small, right? And I love the feeling that OWL, gives when people take or make a call and there's future ripples. And that's a different feeling you get from financial services, right? And an example of that is like, I could help, a rich person get a little richer is a lot different than helping somebody grow their business from potentially 25,000 to 100,000 because of the interactions that they've had on OWL and really make a huge impact to more people's lives from those one-on-one conversations. So my mission, yes, is to impact 1 billion people. And I know a lot of people say that, but when I look back at my story, I did not have to build OWL. I was very comfortable. I struggled in the financial service realm for a very long time and built my business from the ground up. And that business still exists today. And I have, hundreds and hundreds of very happy clients, tons of reviews on the internet, and 3 other advisors that still work with me to this day. And I could have just kept going and sailed into the sunset. I'm married. I have 2 young children, 10 and 8-year-old, and I could be on the sports fields more often. I could be playing pickleball more often, playing poker. I love playing poker more often. And I could have just relaxed and worked 5 to 10 hours a week at where I am right now with my financial service firm. But I took a different route, the route to make a bigger impact to this world. And there's something, I guess, that other entrepreneurs understand and other people don't, because other people are like, what's wrong with you? Retire. Right? I could have been retired. I'm 41 today. I could have been retired at like 35 based on how hard I worked in the financial service industry. But I didn't.
So you've always been very driven, as
Very.
I can tell, like very driven. Where do you think that came from?
That had come from my mother and my father. My father was more the entrepreneurial one, though. He owned a store in New York City called Captain Hooks for over 30 years. It was an nautical antique store. And back then, there was no eBay. So imagine walking to a store that would have all the items you would see on the Titanic, right? That movie that we all love, and saw those different things on those boats. So imagine everything in that movie set somehow had to get there. Well, my dad had everything literally that was shown in that movie practically.
Wow.
And his store was open for a long, long time. There's articles about my father in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and he was just legendary. You ran a mom and pop store and lived in Sands Point, New York, which is very difficult to get to unless you own a very big business typically. Some of my friends literally in my high school were like, Acme Locks, which we see Acme Fish in the stores all across South Florida. Other families like Home Depot, the original founder lived in our town, to Arizona Iced Tea. And there was my dad, who had this little store in New York City, where some people would say a bunch of crap, right? But that crap was very important to a lot of people. It was on a lot of people's walls, all the stuffed fish that people would hang up, all these restaurants you see with nautical stuff hanging up. My dad sold a lot of that stuff to a lot of people over the years, and he would go to garage sales and flea markets, buy it, and resell it. As simple as that. And today, of course, you got eBay and Facebook Marketplace, where maybe a store wouldn't have been able to be what it is today based on all these marketplaces because of the markups, of course. He was able to mark it up however he wanted because they would see it. I mean, like, this is the time to purchase it. But that's my journey as an entrepreneur, learning through selling shit in New York City and just being behind a counter at like 8 years old, 12 years old, and then selling candy on the school bus. My mom let me go to the store and buy some candy and then resell it on the bus, lemonade stands. And then I went through college always with like side jobs, side hustles. I played a lot of poker in college. So you learn a lot about how to read people through poker. I made it to some national championships at a young age playing poker. I almost went pro. But that was kind of my journey. And then selling goes right to, being a financial advisor. You have to sell, and it's a very hard industry. Only 3% of folks make it under age 30. So I grinded hard.
That's amazing. So you had great example as parents.
Yes. Fantastic parents. And just built a lot of character into me, right? They trained me well. Back in the day, there wasn't as many options as you see today with Amazon and Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts. I was trained, when you go to dinner, you're not ordering that lobster. You're not ordering those shrimp. You got to keep the price into a certain range, and no appetizers, no Diet Coke. Right? These days, I feel like we've all let loose a little bit. Like, oh yeah, order away, and you see, a different generation coming up than I think all of our parents' generations.
So how are you with your kids?
That's interesting you ask, because sometimes you shift from your parents' model, but I love playing sports with my kids in the backyard, and I'm very competitive with them. So some people will say I'm too competitive. They're like, "Why are you being so hard?" I'm like kicking the soccer ball super hard. It hits my son in his leg, and he sits there crying. I'm like, because this is what it takes. You got to be strong with them. So I'm very competitive on sports. We play Mario Kart actually now. It's super fun. And we're like racing who's first place. I got to give my son credit. I don't know how he's kicking my butt. I used to be the best at Mario Kart, but he's starting to beat me. But I'm very competitive with them, and I push them to be good in sports, which then naturally flows over into the business setting. And then I do have a softer spot than my parents for when we eat out, versus like how I was like more controlled, and I do eat out a lot. So my family's not a big cooking family.
So how do you install that being driven into them the way you were taught to be driven? Because they have an easier life, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say they had an easier life. I,
No?
I had a good life, right? I was raised in one of the richest towns in America,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
North Shore, Long Island, Sands Point, which is part of Port Washington. Some would look at me and say, oh, this is because you live there. Like if someone takes a glance at your life, it's so easy to judge and critique it, but no one knows the truth behind the scenes. Talk to any of my friends, they would actually start laughing. Oh, not the hills. What happened is when my friends would come over, my dad would try to put them to work. Things broke back then. There wasn't calling a repair person. It was get the boys to come downstairs. We're going to fix this with duct tape and epoxy, typically, and screwdrivers. Right? We fix everything. Right? And my dad was one of those people when something broke, something didn't get fixed. So the running joke with friends is like, yeah, like to call somebody on that phone, you had to like hit 5 buttons, then call out. Like my friends would always joke with me. So it built a lot of character in who I was, through those younger years, because my dad never broke. Like literally, I knew I couldn't go to a store and be like, Dad, I want a candy bar. Never. There
was a lot of rules and boundaries.
A lot of rules, a lot of boundaries. My dad was really cheap with certain things, right? He wasn't cheap in the sense of where we lived in a good school district. And some will say it's just based on what he valued, right? He had nice cars. But then what he didn't value was like food. Like he's like, why am I spending, this at a steakhouse? Like he didn't value steakhouses. So there was things he didn't value. Maybe it's because he was around flea markets the entire time, but anything so inexpensive and reselling them. So he knew how cheap things really cost. And he'd be a spender on like a vacation condo. That's probably why I live here now. He always had a place in Florida. He was a snowbird, and he always loved Florida, coming down here to buy stuff for his store up north. And his mother lived down here when she had retired. But I guess a lot of that, was different there. I had a really good life. I had a pool growing up. I played a lot of sports growing up, and kudos to my mother, who just drove around me, my brother, and my sister, all these sports games all the time, nonstop. And she was a feisty one, right? She was raised in Washington Heights in New York City. So she had to defend for herself, so she learned me, she taught me like, I guess I was the youngest child too, so there's some of that in me where like, don't take shit from nobody. Right. So like my mother, like, back then people would smoke. She was a smoker, and she was just like, someone would say shit about me or my family, and she would just curse them off, almost too much. My friends would joke like, your mom just is like a loose cannon at times if something bad happened. But that instilled in me like, we're all human, right? No one should disrespect you, and people should value you. So to this day, like I am the easiest going person. You'll see that. But also I have a switch where if you do me wrong, and not many people see that switch. I go the other direction real quick, and I cut those people out of my life. And I've cut a lot of people out. Actually, 2025 is my year cutting people out. I've opened so many doors the last 4 years because of the Shrimp Tank podcasts, the other podcasts I run in my office, Tech Tuesdays with Sapphire Tech Hub. That podcast now. We've done the OWWL podcast in the past. That we're not doing as much anymore. But then OWWL, right? A lot of people try to get to you and use you. And I have a lot of connections. So people get through and then they use and abuse me. And I'll be really good to you. Oh, overly good. Or you reached out, you need a podcast guest, remember? And I'm texting people.
No, you're great.
I do all that. But the second somebody doesn't kind of step in and support me, then I go the complete opposite. And I make it known too. I tell them, look, I'm like, this is what you asked for. But then on my end, you didn't come through. I think we're going to have to go separate ways at this point. And they're, but it's like, but no, you have the chance.
You have strong rules and boundaries as well. You know how to, you're a good person, but don't cross you.
Correct. Because I think sometimes it's misunderstood. Your niceness can be like, oh, that's just Jason, he's easy going. He'll come through. And then eventually, like it takes me to that point where I'm like, okay, I have no choice. You've crossed that boundary and you think that I'm just going to ignore it. And I'm not going to.
Right. Well, I believe that elimination is the key to all we want in our lives.
Yeah.
So it's important to eliminate the things that are not working out of your life. So I think that's really powerful.
But very important, because I think a lot of people get this wrong on social media. A lot of people say no too often. And I go the other direction. I think you should say yes as many times as you can, open as many doors as you can, but be really quick to shut those doors, right? And remove the negative energy, right? Because so often I think on social media, everyone's like, don't say yes to everything, be very smart about the events you go to and the meetings you take. And I'm like, that makes sense when you have a huge amount of demand. And often people saying no too often are not being open-minded. And I think you got to open more doors. And my saying, actually you see it on some of my emails, is you go, you get. That is what was installed in me by my father.
Yeah, I like say that quote one more time.
You go, you get.
I like
And
that a
very
lot.
simple is I would go to the flea market with my father, and I loved remote control cars when I was like 7 through 10 years old. And he would bring me to the flea market, and somehow I would get a cool remote control car to bring home. So he would just instill in me, like, let's wake up, go to flea markets, you go, you get.
I love
And
that. You got to
and
get out there.
you
If you don't
do.
get out there, if you're like a no to everything and you're just sitting in your own little space, you're never going to grow from other people or get what you want. So I love that.
And I think too often people say, "Oh, well, that networking event, I don't know. It doesn't seem like it has the right people." But then, like, you're just putting up these walls and these boundaries. But the truth is, like, you just don't know if you go to that restaurant, that bar, like, who's going to be around you in the room that happened to pop their head in. And I think sometimes people trust pre-qualify too much.
Yeah, and you just need to meet one person.
That's
It's
it. I
just
mean,
one. It's one. You're not looking to meet hundreds of people. If you go to a networking event, if you connect with one great person, that can completely change your life.
it really can. There's huge ripples. And I've seen that in all parts of my life, right? It could be meeting the right person, that you have a relationship with. It could be, that one networking event you were exhausted, but you're like, oh, okay, I said I would have that commitment to go, and then you go, and all of a sudden, I'll use real examples because I think sometimes with all podcasts today, I think sometimes it's a lot of things are getting fluffy, right? Where we're not seeing like what are the real things that occurred versus like I did this, but how, right? So I'll share how, right? It was actually an interesting story. One way I got in front of like the Boca Raton Innovation Campus was all of a sudden I had a big influencer cancel on me for something, and then I'm back in the room. I'm joking with these people. I'm like, oh yeah, I was supposed to do this event, and then it canceled, but now we don't have a place to do it. And she's like, well, I run the Boca Raton Innovation Campus. That's the largest campus in the whole state of Florida. They house 5,000 employees, right 10 minutes away from this podcast studio. And I was like, okay. I was like, would you let me do it, on your lawn? We're doing this fitness thing with an influencer. And they're like, sure. We actually want more attention to the campus. They had just taken over the campus and they were redoing a lot of it. And what better than an influencer that has 2 million plus followers doing a fitness thing on their lawn? And it worked out. But it is because I just went to the event and just opened up my mouth and said I was going through a rough day. Something had backed out. So you just don't know
I love that. When
who
one
you
door
meet.
closes, another one opens.
Yeah, and everyone thinks it's going to be, the end of the day. And an example would be my podcast, The Shrimp Tank, got closed down during COVID. It was in my office. We could not do a podcast this close, right when COVID hit. So what do? I started researching places. We were almost going to do it in Meisner Park, actually, at the studio. That's right here. They weren't really using it, and we could space out. And then all of a sudden, my co-host is from FAU, the director of the Adams Center for Entrepreneurship. And they're like, we don't even use this one other room, the Contemplation Lounge. It's got a huge boardroom table. What do we put a mic on each side and the guests in the middle? We're 6 feet apart. And there's no students really going to FAU right now. I'm like, let's do it.
That's awesome.
So we got back into business quicker than any other podcast because of those resources. So when one door closed, where I thought it was over, the Shrimp Tank, we can't run these episodes. And we were doing so good. We were like episode 90, year 2. And I was like, we're doing a podcast episode every week. We had all these guests lined up. They all got canceled. But how cool is this? Now the podcast not only went from the Contemplation Lounge, but FAU loved it so much that they built a whole studio for us. And now the College of Dean uses that same studio. And we just launched in November, and we just did a ribbon cutting actually 2 weeks ago with the city of Boca Raton. And how unique is it that the Chamber of Commerce was there, and they did a ribbon cutting, and we had 30, 40 FAU students sitting in during this podcast show. They get to ask the guest questions each and every week and get a real live experience with entrepreneurs that they never had before, because college is changing so rapidly right now due to all the cheating going on with AI, right? But now they can't really fake this. They come to a class, they get to ask this entrepreneur questions, they get to reach out to the entrepreneur afterwards. It creates opportunities for internships and careers. But all that happened because of change, where I thought I was screwed, and then it turned out that was a blessing. That put me in FAU, not on the outskirts. And now, how unique is this that people like yourself get to walk through the front doors of FAU and now, help others in the next generation to come become great entrepreneurs and tell your story. So I don't know where I'm going with this, because this could be the framework for other universities. I'm sure soon I'll get knocks on my door. Hey, can you share how you're really doing this? because there's a lot more to going on with the wiring and how we broadcast live. It's extremely complex, but no one sees that unless you're actually obviously running a podcast behind the scenes like yourself, right?
That is really amazing and
Thank you.
so cool how you pivoted like that and you saw the opportunity. And that's the thing we have to do is that we have to learn that there's more than what we see right in this moment.
Absolutely.
And disappointment or being upset about something or, having something not go our way, there's always a bigger reason. And that's when you believe in God, you always know that you have that trust that everything's happening for your greater good.
Yes. You just got to open up doors, and you just got to be smart about closing them. When you think someone's going the wrong direction or bad energy around you, just try to walk the other way. And I think too often we follow the rules of what we're supposed to do. And I guess I'm a breaker, right? I don't stand for nonsense. I'm more of a common sense type individual. I'm like, if it makes sense, I do it. If there's no common sense backing it, I'm like this. I'm not going to waste my time. Like, I don't care how the university does one thing or other people are doing it this way. I just say, well, this is the way I believe is the right way, and I go with it.
Yeah, rule breakers are the leaders. You know that, right?
Of course. Like everyone said, I couldn't build a mobile app. They're like, Jason, what are you doing? You're a financial advisor. Financial advisors don't build mobile apps, and you're a podcast host. Like, that has nothing to do with mobile apps. And I said, well, I'm seeing the world changing right now. It used to be that coding was really hard, and the only ones that could build mobile apps are the people who could code. But now it's easier to build mobile apps, and the world has changed, and it just takes hiring developers. And the hardest thing is actually not the coding of an app; it's actually marketing and the go-to-market strategy, and wearing a lot of hats during those early days because you have to be a generalist, not a specialist in one sector. Most entrepreneurs that are super successful are generalists. Very important, where they could wear so many different hats to get their business off the ground, right? Because when you're bootstrapping a business and you don't have capital, no one's going to need capital to start a mobile app unless you've done it once or twice in your past or have huge connections or your friends and family really, don't care about their money. Because 99.9% of these apps fail. And marketplace ones specifically, right? Because we all know that they could become huge and huge multiples to exit, but they fail so often for those same reasons. So in general, you got to bootstrap. So when it came to OWL, I looked at why do people fail? I went backwards. It's because of money. I'm a money guy. I'm good with my money. I had enough runway from all the things that I've saved and sacrificed for, and I had money coming in. So number one reason why I am here today, 4 years operating OWL, is because I had runway. And runway where I wasn't having to beg from investors. Because once you have investors, they're telling you how your app should run. And I've seen so many competitors go out of business because they got a little bit of capital and they switched their product line. And their product line didn't work. And then their investors pulled out and they have no more money and they had to fire the developers and close down. Right? So a lot of times they're solving a problem, but people have app fatigue today and technology fatigue. So good luck getting people with app fatigue and technology fatigue to go all the way to the App Store, hit the download button. Now they got to create another profile for the 100th million time, and then learn how to use your technology, and then come back to use it again and again. And that's the hardest part of running a mobile app. If anybody out there is listening, I would advise you to call me on the OWL app, and I will go into more detail on that before making all the mistakes that I did. I burned through hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of mistakes through the last 4 years because we would rip stuff down and rebuild. And I'm proud to say today we have over 9,000 people that have actively downloaded OWL. And our goal is, of course, by 2025 to get to 100,000. It's harder to get from 0 to 9 than it will be from 9 to 100. That first 1,000 downloads was the hardest things I ever did in my life. Way harder than being a financial advisor when I was in my 20s. And that was one of the hardest things. Because people think it's easy to get someone to take action, and it's really hard. They'll say, yeah, I'll do it later. They won't do it. And especially today, where everyone's attention span is this short. They watch a video, next. Another one, next. Go to the website, oh, it didn't load quick enough, next. Like, how many times have you, be honest, you go to a website, it stalled out for like 2 seconds, and you just say, and then you exit out.
Yeah, I think we all do that.
Yeah.
I think it's like, learning to have patience
Yeah.
and, learning to just know what you want, because so many people are handing you over things and you're just not valuing it,
Yeah,
especially if it's free. A lot of
sure.
people don't value it. And that's why I think you put a cost to OWL too, right?
I did. So
So
that's
let's
part of the learning experience, actually, what I lost a lot of money on.
yeah, I want to talk about that, but let's take a quick commercial break from our sponsor, and we'll be right back with Jason Hill.
Hi, I'm Chris Trammell. I'm the marketing director for The Grass Grows Where I Am, and we can't wait to work with you. And if being in this anthology book would make a difference for your brand, your visibility, and your profitability, click the link below and let's get you started. Can't wait to work with you.
And we are back with Jason Hill from OWL. Jason, this is a great conversation. I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, does take so much to create an app, and the financial part of it, is incredible. And I love the fact that you have this vision and you know where you're going with it, that you have the plan, and I see how hard you work on it on a weekly basis. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm one of the hardest workers you'll ever meet. You'll hear that from a lot of people. And someone actually said that they think that I've accelerated actually recently. And I was explaining to them why. It's just like, now I feel like we finally got it right. Right. So when my acceleration is more, not that I'm working longer, because he never saw like behind the scenes what I was working on, but really harder, where people see it visually on the internet, right? More posts, more marketing stuff. So it looks like we're absolutely everywhere, but a lot of our verticals are now paying off. So people are always shocked, like, oh my God, I feel like Tech Tuesdays, the Shrimp Tank, this event at Podfest Expo, wherever it might be, like we feel like we're almost everywhere. Plus we have over 50 brand ambassadors today and some affiliates that are partnered with us. So they're all posting as well. So naturally we do feel like we're almost everywhere, and we're doing all these tutorial Zooms, but it wasn't always like that, right? The first year you're building, where developers are doing a lot of that, and you're just having brainstorming sessions with them on what it would look like. And it takes a lot of time to code this stuff from the ground up. And then when we officially launched June 7th, 2022, that was the first day we launched with an event at the Levan Center of Innovation. We did it at, and we launched for real money. Prior to that, it was play money. And we had it in the App Store a few months prior to that. We told everyone this is not real money. We're just going to put some extra funds in your account. There were dollars. Everyone charge $1 and just play around. Because you can't imagine how complex an app is. Like when I have to send you $10 and then you're sending someone else $5, you have to calculate that internally to the penny. People do not mess around with money. If they have money missing, you got a problem and you get in trouble. Like it legally has to add up. And we had to get it right before we launch. A lot of apps don't have money, so they have to launch really early. And when people have frustrations, no big deal. There's no money involved. When you have an app with real money, if it does not work, they will go right to the Google Play Store or Apple Store, and they will leave such a negative review. I mean, people left us negative reviews when we had fake money. And I was like, this is fake money. Hello, like, you're welcome. Like, calm down. I'll never forget one of our negative reviews was when we launched for real money. We sent an email out like this money was converted over, and he had put in a deposit of $1. And then he said the app stole my money. And that review is still up there to this day. And I'm like, you didn't read all the emails that said we were in beta and don't deposit. And it was working, so he deposited $1. And then we moved over, we had to switch a balance from bonus and credits, because we were giving bonuses away for new signups as a way to market our app. And he didn't realize, like, he just didn't update his app. If he just updated, he would have saw where the money was. And he left no review, never took it down, never heard from him ever again. So if you're out there, take it down. But in general, having negative reviews really hurts a small business when you're early on. But we really learned so much from our community those early years. And what I did learn in the early years is be careful when developers tell you, oh, you'll be fine once you get the MVP out, that's minimum viable product. Because most apps that we see today, we're all used to and we love, but those apps have had hundreds of millions of dollars poured into them. So when you launch an app in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, what happens is not ready for scalability, and people want the best. So what's going to happen is you're going to launch, you're going to get a crap load of recommendations and feedback that you can't possibly do, but then you will have it sink in likely that you can't really scale. And that's what happened to me. I realized, what about if a call drops? We need a refund policy. Very complex. How do we build a refund policy? We have to hold money in suspense somehow and not pay the expert. So it was really complex to build it with money. And then once you build it with money, you run into like, well, why aren't people putting in deposits if they like this technology? Well, simplest answer. Everything's free out there. So when everything is free, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, people look at it as like, why should I have to pay to speak to this individual? So we had to switch the mechanisms around, right? And start getting people convinced that there was enough value to put in their credit card and pay to speak to someone to gain access to them. So that took a lot of time. There's a lot of failures because the way you see OWL today was not how it was when it first launched. And we had a big issue when it launched that everyone liked the app, but nobody was willing to put in money. And then when you have no money, you have no calls.
And there's no skin in the game.
Yes.
And then you don't value it.
Super important because I would see that people would go available to take calls. They would miss all their calls because they had no skin in the game. And to them, they're like, I just missed a bunch of calls that were $1. And I'm like, no, you missed a bunch of calls that people were interested in talking with you and could have created a ripple to your business. And it's hard to tell those people that were failing, right? And say, well, you just told me you were failing, but you're missing your calls. And when I say failing in their business. So I'm a little confused here. Why are you missing those calls? Right? Because they had no skin in the game. The second they put in their credit card and all of a sudden, like they're paying a monthly fee to be on OWL, then they accepted the calls. So I learned a hard lesson on that.
That's amazing. So, Jason, let's explain to people
Yeah.
how the app works. You know, how it works, how the money exchange goes, so they could learn more about how it could benefit their lives. I would love to share that with
We're
them.
going to open up the app, and what I'm going to do is we're going to zoom in, and we're going to just show the home screen of the app. So right here, everyone can see there's this timer mechanism right here. I'm actually available right now, but we'll go offline. You set a timer, and when you set that timer, what happens is it sends off notifications to your followers that you are available at X rate for X amount of time. So let's use an example. Say I'm charging $100 to gain access to me for 10-minute conversations, and that notification goes to you if you're following me. And now you're sitting on your couch like, oh my God, Jason's available. I just saw him on Facebook the other day and Instagram. I could gain access to call him for that price point right now in real time. You literally, I'm going to show an example. Here's the app. There are people available. So if I go ahead and look at all these active people right here, right, I could click one and we could see right here, this person's available. It looks very similar to like a LinkedIn profile, but the difference is we have a little segment that shows like what you're looking to connect and network about. So there's icebreakers built in there because it's a networking platform. And then there's a price right here. This individual's $1 for 10 minutes. This person's objective is probably to allow as many calls to come in because he wants to take those calls and turn them into opportunities. As you get busier in life, well, maybe you want to charge $5 so it decreases the amount of calls and the opportunities that come in are more serious because they've read your profile. You could click all their Instagram accounts or LinkedIn. People could add social accounts. People could read your reviews. Everything's clickable. But the best part about OWL is in real time, I could call this individual and get on a phone. There's no other technology that right now in this given second that you could call someone and start talking, creating some type of opportunity. An example of those opportunities would be I could look for podcasters, right? Type in podcasts in the search, look at all the podcasters that are available right now and just start saying, hey, I see you have a podcast. I just read up about it. If you ever need a guest, I'd love to join you one time. And before you know it, you're booked on 12, 15 different podcasts in the next 60 days. It's that easy. There's so many podcasts out there. I think they say 3-4 million. They're not all active, of course. But in general, like where else can you do that? Like everywhere else, you have to like research someone, send them a DM on LinkedIn or Instagram, and then wait for them to respond. But then it feels like a solicitation, right? There's something so different when you're able to naturally talk to someone and there's tone in your voice. And these are all audio calls. So what's nice about audio is you don't have to worry about what you look like if a random call comes in. It's like the old days or someone would just call you. But now, in this case, you're the one putting yourself available. So you're welcoming those calls. And other opportunities that come are speaking engagements, real live events. I've seen people call people that are running an event and say, hey, I see that you're in Boca Raton, Florida. I have an event tonight. Actually, you were at that event. That's where we met actually for the first time. Yes. That individual, Claire, called 15 people on OWL within 24 hours, invited them to the event. I showed up. I could not believe my eyes because these were all people from the OWL community. So there's so many ways you could use this technology. And of course, you get knowledge from others, right? Let's say you're running a podcast, right? and you're like, I don't know what microphones to buy. I don't know what cameras to use, right? Well, go call a podcast expert that has been doing it for 10 plus years that really understands technology, right? And that goes to any industry. Go call a fitness expert. Go call a nutritionist. Go call a doctor. Go call someone in finance. So the point being is OWL eliminates friction to get through to other experts. And you make what you want out of that technology. If you want it where you want to be able to call someone to get knowledge, or if you want to not take calls at all, no one's making you take calls. You just use it all outbound. So the future is bright for OWL because more and more businesses are realizing, wait, I can put my sales staff on here to connect to the right individuals we're trying to target. CEOs are using it because they look at it from two ways. Maybe they want to get advice from people. Time is so sensitive to CEOs. They just want to get through to the right person quickly, or vice versa. They just want to be a mentor. We have a lot of FEU students on here. It's actually running through an FEU class right now. These students call up these CEOs and just ask if there's an internship opportunity or career opportunity or just what it's like to be a CEO, whatever it might be. But there's so many opportunities for all, because sometimes I hear someone hear about it and say, oh yeah, that's not really for me. I'm a CEO. And I'm like, oh, you're not human? Like, what do you mean? I was like, you never wanted to get an answer quickly from someone where you're frustrated? Like, explain to me how this would not be right for you. And it goes all the way up to someone who's in their 70s or 80s. My mother's 79 years old and uses OWL, right? And reason why? Lots of times she's just bored. She's lonely. There's a lot of widows out there that are sitting at home watching TV. It gets old, and they are not exactly wanting to run around all the time. So for someone like my mother, she'd go live on OWL and say, I'm available, take some calls, and see the phone ring, and just people just chat with her. And there's no business being done. But my mom's very knowledgeable, of course. So sometimes I'll ask, like, where did Jason get it from? And of course, she's joking around with them. But it just shows that there is so many opportunities out there for all age groups with this technology.
I just have a question. It might be a little bit of a strange question, but have you ever thought of having a part of OWL for people to meet each other, like dating?
It's funny.
Like, I bet you thought about it.
So we've had that happen already naturally. Because again, you put two people on a conversation, that's going to happen. It's no different. Like, we're a virtual networking event, right? What's the difference is we go into an event and there's 100 people in a room and we're chatting, or a lot of these events are at restaurants or bars. Naturally, you have good chemistry. And what happens after that? You exchange information and you say, why don't we grab a coffee or why don't we grab a bite to eat? And naturally, people date that met at networking events. That's so common, right? And when we look at OWL, it's the same thing. It's just an audio call. And on that audio call, you could give out your phone number. You can send them a DM afterwards. And that naturally has already occurred. We have had people meet up and date. We haven't had anyone that I'm aware of that got married. But there's a huge opportunity in that sphere. I don't want to market to that sphere because it could take a turn really quickly, and or it could take a turn to the right way. You don't know until people try it for that reason. We did put a group. We have groups on there. Groups could be an association like South Florida Tech Hub, but it also could be single, ready to mingle.
Do you have that?
We do. I put it in there about 6 weeks ago.
That would be cool.
And I'm tracking the data.
And like, how do you know who's single and who's married? So maybe there could be some kind of like, their status or something.
Well,
I don't know.
Just
an idea.
If a married individual went into single, ready to mingle, I mean, that's going to look very bad if anyone ever catches them, of course, because it's public.
Yeah. No, but I'm just saying, like, so they know that they're single. Yeah. Like, let's say somebody wants to meet someone. Who do they know they want to speak with that's single, for example? But I'm sure there's so much stuff you could do. With
that you could add on with technology, with filters, and close groups so that everyone could see.
But it's cool that you could do a group like that in there,
Yeah, we kept it simple. I just put a group. Anyone can enter it. And then if someone happens to call you and say, hey, I saw you were in the single, ready to mingle, one's 170, one's 21, probably not going to work out, right? But if somebody's 30 and the other one's 35 and there's chemistry, why not?
Yeah.
Right? Because going back to dating apps right now, there's a lot of concern. I think the stats show, and a lot of big podcasts talk about this, like 95% of females are interacting with the same 10% of guys on these apps, or 5%. I think it's that bad. Like, that's an issue, because they're basing it all on looks pretty much at that point.
And people put like their old pictures from like 20 years ago, there's all kinds of stuff.
Of course.
Yeah.
And when we look at my generation, we went to bars and we talked and there was laughter and people got to know you. But if you're judging everyone based on a picture on an app and you're just swiping and then everyone's getting upset, like, oh, the guys are assholes, right? Like, it's like, no, if those are the only percentage of guys getting all the inquiries, they're more inclined to be assholes, right? Because, they're playing the game. But there's 95% of others out there, and there's a lot of good guys out there. But with that is that voice and the tone.
That's not what my friends say. That's not what my friends say. I have a lot of single friends that are like, there's no good guys out there. They have such a hard time.
I know, but if I track the data back, to be fair, if I took their phone and I said, let me look at who you've been messaging. The data will always support it. They're messaging the 5%. And that 5% are those people because they're getting 100 different messages. So it's too hard to track, of course, because the dating apps are not going to release that. But in general, that's a lot of the issues that are happening. And then that other 95%, maybe they feel so hurt. And again, I'm not a genius on this topic.
Yeah.
I just see like, we're humans. How is this possible?
Yeah.
How is there this many people on this earth, but there's not that many good guys? Because I know good guys.
Yeah.
Like where I live, I see guys on the sports fields. I see guys in this mobile app.
Yes.
And I'm talking to them. I'm like, they're everywhere, right? But they feel shut down too often. And maybe they don't want to go. Maybe the bar scene's not their thing, right? So the question is, where are we meeting?
Yeah.
Right? Where are these interactions taking
Well,
place?
I think the OWL app is a great place to meet people, period.
Yes.
Definitely. So let me ask you, can you explain the money more for people, how it works for them? Because it's a little, when you don't really know a lot about it, it's a great app. It's a great place to connect with other people. But there is a money component that I wanted you to go over a little bit.
Yes. So if you're charging $10, I call you, the app takes 30% fee. So you're left with $7. Okay. And pretty much now you have that $7. You could choose to make a withdrawal, or you can use it to call other people. The best people who use OWL the most don't do many withdrawals because they need that money to call others. So often what happens is you'll make $100, $200 on the app taking calls, but you'll take that same $100, $200 and you'll respend it. Because if you're operating a business, right, you got to put money into marketing. People are always trying to save money and spend less, and I think that is so broken. You should be spending more money on your marketing and finding what's profiting you more, right? Why do I want to buy leads for $1 that take me hours and hours to close? If I could buy a lead for $500, but the profit is $1,000 for every lead, I'd rather buy those all day. So too often everyone's trying to go where everything's saturated, right? Social media, so saturated, doing the same thing over and over again, doing the posts that don't perform well, hoping that one day they will, or
we're creatures of habit. We're doing the same thing.
Spend more money, find new opportunities. And all you got to do is put in like $100. That'll go a whole year. There's people on OWL that download it, and standard accounts, you could only take calls at $1 until you upgrade to a premium account. So simply, these people just are curious enough to take a call at $1. And you could sit there because we're new technology and call people for $1. So you have $100, that's 100 phone conversations potentially. Calls start at 10 minutes, but you could extend the call. So maybe you speak to you for 30 minutes for $30, right? Eventually you could raise your price if you have a premium account, but there's so many new people at $1, and we put them right at the top of the app on purpose because we want those people to get calls and then feel that power that comes through the vocals, and then upgrade to a premium account where they can then change their price, unlock other features of the app. But in general, the money is just the ability to make contact with other human beings and then create a ripple. So in general, people are so penny foolish. They're like, I'm not paying for an app for $10 a month. I was like, it's $10 a month for a premium account, and we give you the $10 back to make calls. It's free. And it's a tax write-off. So when I hear people saying they're not going to spend $10 a month, I'm like, how are you ever going to grow your business with that mentality? Like $10? Like it's one thing.
That's total scarcity mentality.
Yeah, they're so used to entertainment for $10. They'll go to Starbucks. I got Starbucks in my hand, like, this is $6. They'll spend $6 a day, but not $10 a month on their business.
Right.
Because they're used to everything being for free. ChatGPT, free. YouTube, free. Instagram, LinkedIn, free. But the second you're like, if you pay and you get things quicker, like there's the value.
So we have to change how we think.
We do. Yeah. And that's the hardest thing with a new technology. No different than when Uber came out, right? Everyone's like, I'm not using Uber. And I was guilty of that. I could just call a taxi. And you just kept fighting it and fighting it and fighting it until the day you got in that Uber and then are like, I'm getting in the car with a stranger right now. But that stranger has a 5.0 review and drove thousands of people around. And then all of a sudden you're like, I kind of like this. You know, in the past, I couldn't see the review. And then all of a sudden you're like, I could order it from a mobile device and I talk to another human being and they get there like quickly and they show me when. That's OWL. Until the first day you take or make a call, you're going to look at it like the taxi versus the Uber. But the second you download it and you're like, I got to leave a review for Noah. Noah got to leave a review for me. There's accountability in this whole process. There's money moving around this whole process. And there's something so powerful to networking where there's accountability and boundaries. Because if you call someone and they won't stop talking, it's 10 minutes only, goodbye, where we've all been stuck on calls for an hour and solicited for an hour. And you're like, nobody else should go through this, but they get away with it because of no review. So OWL kind of combines Zoom, phone calls, Fiverr effect a little bit with reviews, all into one platform.
Yeah, and for my anthology book, I possibly have a new author in there from the OWWL app.
That's awesome.
So I'm really excited. We're actually having a Zoom call with him tomorrow. So I'm really excited, and it wouldn't have happened if I wasn't an OWL. So I got a customer. Now, Jason, I have a question. I keep my price at $1, not that I can't raise it, because I want more calls. Does that make sense or not? Because I'm not there to make money from the phone calls. I'm there to make money when I connect to the right person and I have a new client.
Right now, there is so many good people that use OWL. So having it at $1 perfect because you're just saying I want a limited amount of calls when I am available to take calls, and it's not about the money. So let's say you go available for an hour at $1, you know, the odds are you'll get a call or two. If you raise it up to $5-10, you might not get a call. So you are absolutely correct. You want to be available to accept all the opportunities coming in, and if there's a couple of calls that are bad, no big deal. But most of the calls are good right now, so that's good news. One day that could change. Because as more people start using it and then start soliciting, then all of a sudden at $1, you might end up getting more calls that are of poor quality, more soliciting, not really there for the right reasons. Then at that point, raising up to like $3, $5 might make sense. But right now, we're not seeing really any issues with being at $1 and really seizing that opportunity of maximizing the amount of opportunities that come in. And remember this, every person that calls you, you get a review. So even at $1, and if the call really wasn't that good, you got a review. It's worth something. Go take that review, post it on Instagram, right? Post it out there on LinkedIn. Look what someone said about me, even though the meeting was horrible, right? Reviews are so hard to get today. Good luck getting Google reviews. So difficult. Like no one wants to leave them anymore, right? So with OWL, you really don't have a choice. It's right at the end of the call, and we see 95% of people leaving reviews because you can't get to the home screen until the review is click submitted or skip.
No, that's great. No, I love your app, and I really encourage you listeners out there to download the app, to connect with incredible people. I really found to be such incredible, high-quality people like Jason on the app because I feel like you attract who you are. And I would really encourage you to go. I'm on there, and you could talk to me for just $1 for 10 minutes. And you could talk to Jason and all the amazing people, 8,000 people. Is this worldly? Like it's from all over the world we're talking to people?
Right now it's United States and Canada. Reason being is the money flow. And I also didn't want to put too much pressure on myself. When you start opening up internationally, there's different requirements on the money element side, and countries have their own laws. So you have to be very careful overcommitting yourself. So many founders jump internationally to get more people to sign up. But then what is the quality of the people signing up, right? Are we going to get a lot of people like we see on LinkedIn from India? Just literally my inbox is India. Hey, I could help build you a website. I can help build you a marketing funnel. And it just doesn't end. And people don't like that. So we got to be very careful that we're not just getting mass amount of users, then the wrong types. So I did on purpose, US and Canada to start out with. And when I went larger, we'll go country by country and we'll do it the right way. But I don't want it to go the wrong direction and then be a failure for that reason.
No, that's very smart. That makes sense.
I don't have the staffing or the money to write those checks to legal to do it the right way because you'll get more scams. We've already had scams that have come through. Like people don't think about this, but credit card swiping is a thing. right? Testing credit cards through our system. We've had a lot of people do scams. They're easier to catch because calls have to be made and deposits and withdrawals the way we built the thing. But I just knew that let's do this the right way, and I'm happy where we are today with approximately 9,000 people. And I'm happy it took that long because I fixed all the bugs. I fixed all the things that I knew weren't ready if we did scale. If we scaled a year and a half ago, as much as I would have loved it, we probably would have ended up with a lot of negative reviews and we might not have been able to recover. That's the truth.
Yeah.
Now we are ready.
I love that so much. And the world is ready for you. Definitely the United States and Canada is ready for you. So when it expands later, we'll let you know. But right now it's United States and Canada. And that's a great thing. So how many millions of people do we have between us?
We have plenty
So
of people.
We have plenty,
Absolutely.
no lack of people. So Jason, any last thing you want to say to our audience, where they can find you, where they can download the app, anything else you want to say?
Yeah, so go right to the App Store or Google Play Store, type in OWWLL, 2 W's because owls are wise, 2 L's because you're going to love it. And of course, when you sign up, we're going to put in the show notes her referral code. And you'll receive a $10 sign up bonus when you use that code. And ready for this, we're going to do something special. If you listen to this much of the episode, and if maybe you'll even clip this part of the episode, and you call Noah and reference this episode, what we were talking about, and you email feedback@owl.com with a screenshot, I will give you another $10 bonus in your account.
Wow.
So you manually have to do it because I can't track this, of course. And you'll get $20, that means, for signing up and talking to Noah. So it's for new people only, of course, because you're in the app, you already have it.
I love that so much, Jason. Thank you so much. I feel honored. I really feel
Absolutely.
honored. You're so generous. You really are. I'm like, just the whole model of this app is very generous.
Thank you. And you can find me, the Jason R. Hill, on all socials, at Shrimp Tank Boca if you want to check out my podcast. And of course, you want to call me. You will not get me to give you my cell phone number in the DMs. I tell everyone, you want to talk? I'm always available daily on Owl. You can find me there. And I even take it a step further. Most people, I refund the money after they call me. I just say you got to put in $100 deposit because I'm charging $100. So you got to have skin in the game. You put in $100, you call me, I'm all ears. I give the money right back to you because that shows you care.
I love that. That's generous again. So
Very. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jason. This has been an amazing conversation, and I definitely want to have this again. So we'll
Absolutely.
do it again for sure.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Appreciate
of course. It's been an honor. I want to thank you again for joining me today on the World Healing Tour podcast. Until next time, remember to practice these 3 important elements every day. Number 1, every day remember to have a grateful heart and connect to your gratitude. Number 2, remember every day to practice being grounded in love and compassion, first for yourself and then share that love and compassion with others. And number 3, remember every day that you're not alone on this journey. You're guided by a higher power. I call it God, whatever you call it, universe, source. You're not alone. Make sure you connect with everyone. This world is smaller than we actually think it is. Have a beautiful day, everyone, a beautiful week. Till next time, namaste. Hi, this is Noah Crane. I'm excited to share this anthology book with you, The Grass Grows Where I Am. So just join us and be a part of this incredible book to help bring your message and influence into the world. We're excited to showcase what you do to make this world better. Click the link below.